What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Scum. I am your host, Reckless Rex Ruger. That, of course, is the Freddie Mercury puppet. We are among some of the greatest front men to ever do it. I, of course, have inherited my greatness from Pops up there, the great Diamond David Lee Roth, which makes me the son of glam, the front man for the band, adored by millions of fans, the peanut butter to your jam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, Mr. Wop, Bop, Loo, Bop, Wop, bam, bam, shazam, hot damn, chiggity ching, that kid can sing, he's got star power, that's me. Undeniable charisma, undeniably exuding all of the best features of my Pops up there, and I'm hoping for a very teary-eyed reunion in August when I get to finally go see Pops do his thing. I'm excited. Diamond Dave coming to upstate New York, August 15th, Turning Stone Resort Casino. Your boy Reckless Rex will be in the building, and hopefully, it's a father and son reunion for the ages. I don't know. Not holding my breath. He's been absent in my life so far for 52 years, so why should anything change? Dave, I'm not saying you're a deadbeat, but I'm saying it without saying it. That being said, we got another great episode with a guy that has been on this podcast before and is undeniably one of, if not the best bands of all time. And he will be in here in one moment. Can't wait to catch up with him on what's going on. Of course, the mighty Crowbar. When you name your band Crowbar, there's no denying that you know what you're going to get. When you drop the needle on an album by a band named Crowbar, expect to get bludgeoned. Expect it. And embrace it. Welcome it. It's why we put a Crowbar album on. So I'm excited to have my boy Matt in here, man. Excited. I haven't caught up with him in a minute. Also excited that Crowbar, another band that is coming to upstate New York, I believe in September. A great tour rolling through my backyard with the great EYEHATEGOD. Shout out to Jimmy Bauer, who's also been on this podcast a couple times. I'm excited. Got to find my way to get myself out to that show, man. These guys right in my backyard. Great guys. Friends of the podcast. I will be in the building. Somehow, some way, we'll make it happen. I believe it's one of those oddball middle of the week shows, a Tuesday nighter, but that's neither hide nor hair. I will be there. My guest is here. We're going to get down to it and chop it up, man. Let's get right into it, man. Let's go. And again, the Jeopardy folks, got to get me that tune. Got to get it to me. And do we have Matt in the house?
I think we got it, brother.
Yeah, just got to get your camera up, but I can hear you though. There you go. Hey, Matt, what's up, man?
What's happening?
Had you there for a minute and lost you.
Uh-oh.
Not audio, just video.
Okay.
Is there a camera thing at the bottom of the screen? There you go. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, man?
I was just saying in my little preamble, man, that having had you on now for a second time and having had Jimmy Bauer on a couple times, I've got to find a way to make it out. You guys are coming right in my backyard in September to the Great Lost Horizon in Syracuse, New York.
Good, man. Awesome. Look, we're really excited about that tour, man. A lot of people have been asking for it for a long time. I mean, We've all been asking for it, us and the guys in the band. And finally, we did some shows with Soulfly in Texas. And we all were sitting in the dressing room talking, and we were like, man, why the fuck haven't we done this yet? And here we are, you know, I don't know what the time frame was, but, you know, 6-8 months later, we're doing it. So,
yeah, I must find my way into the building, man. That's an amazing, plus having had you guys on, man, it'd be great to actually catch up and say hi in person.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, man. That's a heavy show right there.
Yeah.
Building might not still. After that, the building might not still be standing.
Hey, you never know.
Might just be a hole. Might just be a hole in the parking lot.
Well, hey, if that happens, you know, whatever, man. Not our fault, but you know, hey, they asked for it, right?
They asked for it. Yeah. Be careful what you wish for. That's right, man. I was reading an interesting story, and I think the last time that you came on here, we talked about this, though, man. But you have a wealth of experience and background in the martial arts. And I was reading an article, and we may have talked about it the first time, and you actually had to hem somebody up outside of a show one time, man, and bail the cops out.
Yeah, we were on tour with Carcass, and we played at Toad's Place in New Haven, Connecticut, and we loaded out. We were direct support, so we were loaded out. And they have the dressing rooms and stuff downstairs there at least at the time. And so I go down there to do like a dummy check, make sure we're not leaving shit in the dressing room before we close the trailer, so we don't have to open it back up again in the middle of the street and all of that. And when I'm walking out, Parkus just started firing up planes, so they're ripping. It's almost like something out of a fucking movie. Yeah. Right as all this killer heavy metal just starts ripping, all of a sudden I see the security guards fighting with this guy to get him out of the building. And apparently later, like I heard that he had caused trouble earlier in the night. And then right when Parkus started playing, he started attacking that person or attacking someone else. So the guy was, not really being cool at all. And then he's trying to, they get him out and he's trying to make his way back into the venue. And, I can't really say specifically, the whole dime bag thing was running through my head. But what was running through my head was he's going to go back in there and fucking hurt somebody.
Right.
And, man, not for nothing, like the security guards, I don't think they were really equipped to deal with like a super aggressive person, because they were probably just used to people going, all right, man, I'll leave, that type of shit.
Yeah.
3 or 4 dudes, but they were small guys. And this guy was a little bigger and he was fucked up. So he was obviously like a gamer. So he's fighting with them. Finally, they shove him out the door. And there's this club is like on like Club Row for like Yale University. So there's a lot of shit going on, and they got cops on the corner. He sees what's going on, and he goes over to the guy and he's telling him to leave. And he just keeps trying to, every time like he gets a little break and people kind of relax a little bit, he tries to force his way back in the door again. And finally the cop, the MEB, expandable baton, he puts it out about halfway and he pokes the guy. He's like, man, get moving. Well, the guy squares up on the cop. And at that point, I'd cinched him up in a shoulder lock, like standing, like Udagurami, and put him down. And, cop was like, everybody was completely fucking not expecting me to do that, So when I did it, he's tensed up. So, a little bit of like pressure on his wrist to get him to calm down, and knee on his lower back, to keep him from hipping up or anything like that. Just a typical knee on back pin, and cops like fumbling with the handcuffs and all that shit. And I'm like, that got the cuff on him, and they got him up, and the cop was like, man, asking those guys if they wanted to press charges, that kind of stuff. And they're like, no, we just want him to leave. And while it's going on, the guy was telling me, he's like, man, you got to help me out. I'm like, dude, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I did do a huge favor, because like he would have got his ass handed to him by, there's 4 or 5 cops down there. If he'd have really started fighting with that cop, they would have fucking, who knows how badly they would have fucking hurt that guy.
Yeah.
I put a little pressure on his wrist and maybe his ego. That was it, And then after they're just like, look, we just want him to go. So I said, you know what? I told him, I said, look, they're going to let you go and cuff you. You got to get the fuck out of here. And he's like, man, I don't want to be anywhere around here, man. So they uncuff him, and the guy hugged me. He's like, thank you. And it's one of those stories. It's kind of a long story, but it was funny because we were on tour with Ghoul and Night Demon. And at the time, and I can't remember, it was the guys from Ghoul were like, man, we hear all the time about guys like talking about doing martial arts and like you always want bullshit or not. And I was like, said, hey man, when you really got to go, you got to go. And like even the cop, like I went and just be nice, because he was kind of huffed out from just a little bit of the
right.
So I brought him a bottle of water, and he asked me if I was ex-law enforcement. And I was like, fuck no, man. I just played in the band.
I was going to say, I'm surprised they didn't go right into the car, man, and see if they could get you an application. I mean, it's like, it seems like they were a little bit, for being in that field, they almost seemed like they were a little ill-equipped to deal with the situation, law enforcement included.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. And I think a lot of it just goes back to, I talk about this all the time, because the guy, Professor Frank Carasi, the guy that owns the school that I train at, the Dojang New Orleans, I've been training with him for like 20 years doing Hapkido, Mudo, and Jiu-Jitsu. But he's former law. He was a law enforcement officer for 16 years. And his main thing, like, he's like, man, the amount of guys that they're not in shape, like they don't stay in shape. And he goes, it's really a problem, because, that's your first weapon is your body, and like,
sure.
If you're in good shape, even if you really don't know how to fight very well, you can if you got better stamina and you can last, a lot of times a guy can fight himself out and you can actually win. I mean, you've seen it happen in professional combat sports where a guy he had no fucking chance of winning, just had the motor that night and just wouldn't go away.
I do on my YouTube channel, obviously the music one, and I also do a boxing podcast. And so I watch a lot of boxing, and obviously, guys gas out, they do.
Yeah. And the issue with the police in that regard is when you're absolutely exhausted in a physical confrontation like that, even if it's just like in my world, I'm not getting in like these brutal life and death struggles, obviously, but in the jiu-jitsu world, when you're absolutely fatigued, man, your brain goes into a very desperate place. Even if you're trained, you know how to control it because you're able to remind the back part of your brain that, hey, we're just training, let's recoup and get out. But I can only imagine if you've got a guy that wants to kill you, and you're out of gas and you've got all kinds of shit strapped to you that is very fucking deadly. Generally that's the fatigue. What was it, Teddy Roosevelt? Fatigue makes cowards of us all. But it's like you're gonna shoot a motherfucker or worse when you're like, all right, now this is life or death. So I feel like and then the other part of it is the obviously I'm not an expert on all of this shit, but I just know that for a lot of the fourth continuum laws that some police officers in some municipalities are bound by also has a lot of impact on the way certain things go down.
Right. And now, of course, everyone's pulling out their phones, man. So there's liability, and everybody's watching now and auditing the police and putting them under the microscope, and what I mean. So it's probably dicey. It's a slippery slope for the cops, I would imagine, too.
Well, yeah, that and here's the thing. It's like the problem is you always refer to them as like the curbside lawyers. There's people that they think they know certain things. They want to come to a conclusion just because you see the end of a situation. You have no idea. So without context, it's hard to decipher what some of that stuff goes on. But as far as just like what those guys can do and what they can't do, it's a little bit strange in the sense of like, okay, we've given these guys rules against guys who play by no rules, and some of these guys are real bad people, man. They don't really. They will do whatever they can. They will hurt anyone to not go to jail again, not just a police officer, but anyone. So it's like, what's the right answer? I think honestly, we're kind of getting off into a separate thing, but it's like, okay, first of all, just get these guys in shape and make them. If you're not going to make these guys, do any sort of physical activity or make them uphold any sort of standards, I mean, it's very hard to have confidence. I mean, you can't have confidence in a weapon.
Right. Is there one discipline that you think would suits people? Not even just law enforcement, but just you practice multiple disciplines. Because remember Bruce Lee made a big thing like when he got into Jeet Kune Do, where he said that a lot of it was a mess, and he tried to like scale back a lot of the shit that wasn't practical and wouldn't work. Have you done that throughout your own practices? I mean, like how are you into the traditional stuff, or are you into thinning it out and focusing on what is most applicable in real life situations?
Well, my approach is kind of both. I'm a very, even though I might not look like it, I'm very much a traditionalist with a lot of stuff, and it goes to the arts too. But at the same time, you can be a traditionalist, but you can also be a realist. And you can understand that something that might have been applicable years and years ago is not now. And the main thing is like the lexicon of now, like the ground fighting being, part of just normal combat now. There's no escaping that, which I've always thought was kind of interesting because, especially in America or the West, wrestling has always been a huge cult, especially if you grew up like in the Northeast, Midwest, that area. Oh yeah. Most of those guys have some sort of wrestling background, whether they pursued it or they were forced to do it in like PE in high school back in the day. It's like, but it's strange that it took, the UFC to bring the grappling aspect of fighting into the American style of it, because the Japanese, and other places, judo, and Russia had sambo, and there's different types of native wrestling all over the world, but it never became a very popular part of American or Western style fighting. It was always pugilist.
Right. Now, so in your studies, like, do you just focus on the physical part of the martial arts, or are you into like some of the dogmas and the philosophies that go with it? Like you said, you were very traditional. Like, there's a lot of like religious tenets, and like there's Buddhism attached to some of the stuff, and Taoism and stuff like that. Like, you go that deep with it, or are you just in it just for the actual like the movements?
Well, both, but I don't really try to get too bogged down with the too much of the philosophy while you're training.
Yeah.
There's a time and place, after class or before class, if you want to impart some wisdom. And a lot of it's just kind of like rules to live by life, whether you want to talk about it as a religious thing or just, tenets to be a good person or whatever. But when you're training, it should be all about, the movements. And,
right.
You have to tell people, you have to be realistic when you tell people certain things about techniques. It's like, I really don't like when certain instructors try to tell you that, oh, every technique in our system is going to work against anybody.
Right.
We all know that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, if I see a guy who's a fucking, some giant construction worker guy with forearms and wrists, I'm not going to try to like wrist lock or arm lock that fucking guy.
Right. Right.
Well, he looks at me like I'm Bozo the Clown while I'm fooling with his arm. It's like, no, you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It's like, you have to, that's why I believe in, you should cross train, and kind of learn, even if your goal is to not specifically become a master in a certain aspect of an art. It's good to learn just so you don't fall victim to it. Like I know a lot of guys over the years that end up sticking with jiu-jitsu for a long time. They not necessarily cared so much about grappling and being this world champion, but there's a couple of guys that did stand-up martial arts, and like, it was like a buddy of mine years ago was like, man, I started training with you guys because I just wanted to learn how you guys fought on the ground. You just didn't want to get fucked up by jiu-jitsu, so that's why he learned it.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like the martial arts training, maybe people watching this or listening like might not see a correlation directly, but martial arts and what you do on stage or what you do like guitar wise, have the two worlds bled into each other and help facilitate, help one another?
Absolutely. And mainly it's just because it's the same type of work ethic in the sense of you have to do just endless repetitions of the stuff to get good at it. And that's the only way that you're going to get good at all that stuff. And it's the same type of thing. You have to get into like, not to sound like some sort of philosophy thing, but you have to get into the zen of doing the same repetitive task, and you just focus on it, and it becomes, becomes natural, and that's the thing. So the guitar versus martial arts, because even though you're playing guitar, you still have to kind of master your body a little bit, the coordination between your hands and fingers, eyes, all of that stuff.
And now, do you feel like one martial art suits you better? Because, like, from what I've read, man, like, you're a pretty tall guy, correct?
I'm like just like a hair over 6 foot, so a little bit up there compared to some guys.
Is there one that suits you most, or was there one that you gravitated towards the most? Like, you've studied these multiple disciplines, but is there one that you really dug into and felt was really like your lane?
I really kind of enjoyed as far as like the stuff that's kind of in the middle there. Like, I really enjoy the Hamudo system, the Korean Hamudo system. I really enjoy the Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo system as well. And because it's kind of a kind of in the middle, a mix of all of that stuff. You're kicking and punching, you're joint locking, you're throwing, and you're grappling. And then if you get on the outside of it, you have the kickboxing, and you have like the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is like more specialized, So I enjoy kind of doing a little bit of everything. But the cool thing about having, especially if you have the luxury of multiple disciplines being offered at your school, is you can, if you want to get some more specialized training, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the jiu-jitsu classes a little more this week, versus whatever else we have going on, or the kickboxing or whatever's going on. So, but yeah, I kind of like to stay in the middle there, because I feel like you have to kind of, if we're talking about defending ourselves, you kind of have to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to have a little bit of everything. Be able to be on your feet and be able to be on the ground. Because they do say a lot of fights typically are sloppy and do end up on the ground, which is why I think a big part of why the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has gotten so popular. I mean, especially like when you got alcohol involved. Those guys are always rolling around on the ground.
Right. And it could also be, not by your own choice. You could get somebody grab a hold of you in a tussle. There could be slippery on the floor.
Right.
Like, whatever, who knows how you can end up there. But, you know, as long as you, like with the jiu-jitsu, I always tell my students, like, okay, when we're in a tournament or we're sparring in here, it's all fine. You know, take your time, do all your positions. But just remember, whenever you're if you ever get in a real altercation, use your jiu-jitsu to get on top in a dominant position. No questions asked. I'm not trying to play around and submit some guy and like, you know, relive some sort of tournament glory. No, I want to get on top and finish that situation however it needs to be finished, whether I need to keep hitting that guy or, you know, somebody's going to break it up or I'm going to pin him. And that's the other thing about the jiu-jitsu that I think I have to reiterate a lot of times to students. It's like, granted, it's a grappling art, but, you know, I don't know who made this quote famous, but sometimes you just got to hit a motherfucker, you know?
Yeah.
And that, you know, if somebody doesn't, you know, if you've got somebody pinned and he's still struggling, so sometimes there's that motivation, you know? You have to be able to do all of it because not, like I said, once again, you can't fit everything into a situation, you know, into all one, you know? So you have to be a little bit, you know, proactive and do a little bit of everything.
And I picked up on you saying teaching your students. I'm assuming somewhere along the line, man, you've also probably taught guitar lessons, correct? At some point,
yeah,
have you taught people to play guitar? So out of the two things, is it easier to teach someone guitar or someone teach someone martial arts?
You know, it's really it could be either way. You know, it just depends on the person. I think the hallmark of being a guitar or a good teacher, like I still teach guitar lessons, so
yeah.
I'm always in the doing that stuff too. And it really just about, once again, I just said it, you know, trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It's like, you can't teach everybody the same either.
Right.
You know?
People don't learn the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. People are going to pick up on stuff. Like I have students like at the dojo, guys that are like engineers and stuff. So they're very analytical about stuff and sometimes a little over analytical.
Right.
When it's
Right.
like, do I do this? It's like
questioning everything.
Move,
yeah.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like stop worrying about which degree you're just put your foot there. I don't care where it's pointing, you know, that type of, we'll work on the rest later, you know, but, so yeah.
I imagine you always hear, man, like with martial arts, man, you know, you always see like back when it used to be advertised or it used to be in the yellow pages, you know, I mean, karate schools would always say, bring your kids, you know, not only will they learn to defend themselves, they'll learn patience, they'll learn discipline, they'll learn respect for other people, you know, a lot of those mental aspects. Do those mental aspects like come in handy, you know, when you're a musician? Because I imagine sometimes mental toughness must be important. You know, there's a lot of isolation, hotel rooms, long van rides. I'm sure that stuff must, you know, it must come in handy that, you know, in those situations.
Well, yeah, it you know, because that type of stuff does wear on you. And, you know, and it's one of those things where the way that I relate it is like, when I think about it, if something's, you know, not going our way or just we're kind of suffering a little bit, I just go back to think about, man, if I can just getting the shit beat out of me by all these great black belts over the years and just take those whippings and all that physical abuse, so like I can handle this, you know, and it's just, you just relate it to your past experiences of your past sufferings, you know, and that's kind of, and you just kind of think about it like that, you know, and then there's like the other mental aspect of like, you know, sometimes fans don't understand that, like, yeah, we're having a great time on stage, but they might not know that the promoter ripped us off. We're not getting fucking paid that night or, you know, something like that. I mean, that type of stuff really doesn't happen anymore, but, you know, early in the day you deal with shady people and stuff, but you still have to go out and perform. So you have to put all that shit behind you. And it's like the people that paid money to see you, they don't want to go out and see you having a bad day. And you know what? I'll be the first to admit there's been plenty of times in my career where I was like, man, I really fucked that up. Meaning like, you know, I let that shit bother me and I could tell that I let it bother me while I was on stage, whatever the fuck it might be, you know, whether it's a personal thing or a business thing or whatever's going on. You just have to learn that the second you hit that chord and you see one person that's just like, fucking right, you made that guy's night, you know, just going out. And it's sometimes it's hard to remember that, you know, and I'll be the first to admit, you know, everybody forgets that shit sometimes. And
right. And so what's going on now? So if I'm not mistaken, Zero and Below was the last Crowbar album in 2022. So will there be new material out before this tour starts, man? Like, where are we with like any new Crowbar music? Like, what are you at liberty to say?
Well, so we've got the tour coming up with EYEHATEGOD in August. And then the next thing that we have going on is we're doing that Lamb of God, the boat for Halloween.
Oh, right.
That's going to be a lot of fun. We had when we got approached about doing it, we asked we asked the EYEHATEGOD guys and a couple other people, how was it? They're like, man, it was great. We got treated really well. It was so awesome. Definitely do it. So we're going to do that. But in the meantime, like since the time we've been off, since the Napalm Death tour, everybody's been busy, doing shit, especially like Kirk, and of course Shane's been doing stuff. So we haven't been really getting together and writing anything yet. But the plan is once we get back from at least this tour, we'll have all of September and pretty much all of October to start getting in a room and writing some material. But yeah, we definitely want to get on that as soon as possible. It's just everybody's schedules and the red tape of doing that business wise. We're going to start getting into at least the writing of the record, before we either set foot in the studio. We want to make sure we've got some really good stuff to present before we get in there.
I remember being young, and I guess this is being like naive or whatever, but like, being a teenager, I always used to equate heavy with, completely indiscernible lyrics, breakneck speed. You know what I mean? But now, as I've gotten older, I realize that heavy can take on a totally different meaning. I have seen, and I can't even count how many YouTube videos, podcasts, things online where I've seen like lists. I even saw these two guys in hardcore bands like do this thing where they had every band in brackets, and it got down to like the finals. And Crowbar shows up on almost all these lists as the heaviest, one of, if not the heaviest bands out there, man. And I mean, you're up there playing the material, obviously, and it is undeniably heavy, man. But would you say that Crowbar is, you're around, you're on the festival circuit, you're playing with this band, you're playing with that band. Where do you put Crowbar in terms of heaviest bands that you've heard or experienced?
Well, I mean, I can kind of go at it from two different perspectives because I was a fan of the band as a young guy before I was actually fortunate enough to join the band, So as far as like from the fan standpoint, and regardless of what anybody says, your opinions and your perspectives on things do change if you do get into this business.
Right.
But you can't deny like the emotion that something, instills in you, and that's the thing I like to think about, like the heavy as far as where we rank. A lot of people are like, the emotion behind it. Cause that's the thing to me, like heavy is an emotion, I could give somebody my 7-string tuned way low and they could write like the worst sounding, not heavy song ever on that guitar. It's not really necessarily about the notes in particular. It's about what's behind it. And then that's, you got to create a mood, and there's, the lyrics help create the mood. And that's the one thing that was always strange to me about the death metal lyrics sometimes, because there are some bands where some people, but like the older bands, I could definitely understand the lyrics, but I was like, man, you guys are saying some really wild shit. Like you should make it a little more intelligible. So, you really wanted to, whatever you're trying to do. But once again, stylistically, if that's not what's prescribed for that particular style, then no. But as far as I'm concerned, where we rank, I think we're pretty up there, and once again, it's an opinion, but I like to think, if we've got at least one riff that makes the hair on your arm stand up, we're doing our job.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's no shortage of those, man. And so like when you guys do dig into new material, and I may have asked you this the last time, obviously Kirk just seems like, like a wealth, a never-ending supply of amazing riffs or whatever. But when you dig in and actually start the writing process, because he's the only, original static member of that band. How much room does he give you guys, to collaborate and jump in there in the songwriting process?
So it's kind of funny because a lot of people ask that question, and it's a very good and valid question. And I totally understand where it comes from, but never once was I ever, what's the word I'm looking for? Never was any restraint ever put on me as far as input, creativity. And like Kirk even said one time, whether I don't remember if we were just talking to somebody on the bus or was an interview or something. He's like, fuck, I did this by myself because like I had to. There were so many times, where, the band was in different parts of like disarray, lack of a better term, or they were missing a guitar player, or it was just him and Jimmy, or it was like whatever, so it's like he goes, well, fuck, man, if guys got good ideas. And ever since so when we did the first record that from when I was in the band, Sever the Wicked Hand, a lot of people don't know I actually kind of did the pre-production for that record, like way before, actually technically before I was in the band. It was just me and Kirk in he had like a little hangout room in his house that he was living in at the time. It was just, we had a Tascam 4-track, one of those, just an analog metronome that we used to like record a click track, a SM58, and a little cheap Marshall practice amp. And, but yeah, I mean, I've written a lot of stuff, over the years with the band. In fact, a little small story about that was just when we were doing Sever the Wicked Hand, that the first tune, Isolation, Desperation, there's like a little, Kirk wanted to start the album with like a cool harmony thing, just kind of like, and so trying to come up with something, and it was just sounding real forced and just like we were trying to come up with something cool and it never sounds right. So I said, man, there's like a little riff, like little tail in the tune where it's, if you don't know what you're listening to, you're going to miss it. But there's a little harmony thing. And I said, and it goes by kind of quick. And I told Kirk, I said, man, what about we take that harmony thing, we'd slow it down and we just play it backwards? And he's like, what? And I said, so take the notes. And we just like, I said, boom, well, just because it was an us-ending thing on his part. It was a descending thing on my part. I said, let's switch. Same notes. You're going to play them us-ending. I'll play them descending, but we're going to slow it down. And literally right before we were going into the studio next door at OCD to record it, I said, we just, try it. 1, 2, and we burn. And that's the harmony at the beginning of that record is just, so technically there'll be times where it's maybe something I didn't write, or in regard, maybe something Kirk didn't write, but you have an idea to trick it out or change it. And it's like, you can't say that this is only my shit and nobody can touch it.
Right.
Some bands do that. But I don't understand why, if you're going to hire dudes to like be in the band and not just guys that are going to go out on tour, why wouldn't you want their input, especially if they're good players?
Right. It was like legendary back in the day. Like the early days, it was like James and Lars would just like write everything and just tell the other guys like what to play. You know what I mean? Like they would legendarily go on record and say, we called all the shots, and just,
Yeah. And you know what? To their credit, it worked for them.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
There's always outliers, and there's always, and there's been plenty of times over the years where artists have been like, dude, this is all me. You play what I tell you to play. Fair enough. You're either going to do that shit or you're not, but the first thing Kirk was like, he's like, man, if you fucking have any ideas, you use them.
It does seem like in the metal world, thank God, the metal genre exists, because it does still make sense. The way people are consuming music nowadays, it does seem like it's like a singular track world. People just find what they like, and that's it, and that's as far into your album as they dive. Thankfully, though, like metal, though, it still makes sense to put on an LP, right? Like metal fans don't really get into the singles or the I know there's a lot of bands even doing EPs or whatever, but like Crowbar seems like a band that wants to put out a fully fleshed out full album, right? Like what you guys have to say, needs to be the duration of an album.
Yeah, I would say that, and we just, obviously, I grew up, later than Kirk. He just turned 60.
Yeah.
I'm 43. We always joke, like when I was born, he was like, no, when he graduated high school, I was like 2 years old.
Yeah. Like, that probably makes him feel great.
But like it's funny, like we'll be on stage and it'll be like, me and Jimmy Bauer wrote this song in 1993. I'll be like, I was 12,
Yeah.
And, but no. So the thing is like when we came from like an era where bands did more of an album, and that was the thing. You made an album, and I knew that was changing. Like once the digital world came in with computers and stuff like that, because I would start hearing more people refer to songs as track numbers and not the title of the song. And you do run into, and I run into it with a lot of metal fans, as they like, especially me when I was growing up, I wanted to look at the artwork and like,
definitely. Yeah. Read the liner notes. Yeah. As crazy as it sounds, I don't know who any of these fucking people are, but I'm really interested. Like, oh, he was the crew guy. He was this guy. Oh, this guy produced it. You start learning these names, and you want to read the thanks list. And right, the thanks list was big for me, because that's where you'd see them thank like bands that influenced them, bands that are on tour with, bands that were on their label, and a lot of times that would inform like like what you would purchase next. You'd be like, okay, if James Hetfield digs these bands, I'm gonna go do a deep dive and check these bands out.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, like I said, and the other thing too, like that, vinyl's making a comeback or has made a comeback is you get a lot of artwork in a big giant form, so it's like, and it honestly, it just, to me, doing it like that, it just forces you to like do your job without throwing any sort of shade at anybody who does the LPs or does the singles and stuff like that. No, whatever works for you, but what we like to do, what works for us, is making a full-length album, but at the same time, not just having 15 songs for the sake of having 15 songs. We try to cap it around 10,
right?
Just so it's all gas. It's all of our best shit.
And so you've been in the band since 2009. So now 16 plus years in, man. Touring. Crowbar, certainly you guys are out on the road quite a bit. You still enjoy that part of the business as much? I know sometimes people get older. People like their creature comforts. They don't like to be away from home maybe as much. We all like, I think no matter what age you're at, everybody likes their own bed. Everybody likes what they like or whatever. You still love that part of it. Being out in a van, being out, sleeping in one of those coffins on a tour bus. You still love that part of it?
Well, I tell you what, is you get to a point where sometimes you are like, man, fuck, but then you realize, hey man, a lot of guys don't have the ability to be able to sleep in a bunk,
Right. Right.
You just got to kind of inventory your stuff and take a little more, be grateful a little bit, when your situation, if it is better than it used to be, you kind of put that back and it makes you feel a little better. But, for me, the travel sometimes, like, the shows are always great. I always tell people it's like the 23 hours of bullshit you go through for that 1 hour on stage is worth it, or else you wouldn't do it, But yeah, over the years, stuff that used to have some novelty to it, you're just kind of like, man, like flying and stuff like that. You just
spending time in airports. Yeah,
it gets rough. That's like the job part of it, doing that type of shit, But
and now does Kirk have a set idea, man? Like what he wants the itinerary to be like? Like, is he one of these kind of guys? Like, for some reason, I've heard the number, talking to all the people I have on here, where like people start to get to the 3 or 4 week part, and then they start to think, okay, this is long enough. It's time to pack it in and go home, man. You know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily see bands, and probably a lot of that is out of necessity and the logistics and the money part of it. People just don't go out on tour like they used to. Hey, we put an album out, we're going out for the next 18 months. You know what I mean? But is there a comfortable number that you like to extend yourself, or that Kirk likes to go out and say, all right, guys, we're going out for 3 weeks. That's all I can stand, and then we'll go home and then we'll regroup and we'll go do more dates?
Well, it kind of depends. Obviously, if we could have it our way every time, it would be just getting playing 3 shows a week, getting paid $1 million a night. Right. But the thing is, like we always say, it's like your body knows when the tour is about to be over. It lasts as long as the tour lasts. So like, if you're like we did, we've done some long ones over the years. Anywhere like a month, 4 to 6 weeks is kind of like, if you get to that threshold where like, if it was any longer, you would be able to do it. Obviously you could continue, but if you were set to go home and all of a sudden you get a call and like, hey man, we got these shows lined up over here. You guys do this, this, and this. So you're kind of like, that's when you kind of become like, okay, how much is it? Because you really want to fucking go home, And it's like,
right. You've had it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you've got a date set that you're going to be flying home, and all of a sudden that could change, there's monetary motivation is what's going to keep you out at that point. But if you go into a tour knowing that, man, this is going to be 12 weeks, man, we get fucking 85 shows in 90 days or whatever the hell it is. It's like, you lock in on it, you know what you're getting into. So it's not as bad. But if if somebody said, no, we're going to go out for 3 weeks, and then they keep adding time, eventually it's like, all right.
Worse than, yeah. Now, I've heard some people tell me, man, that touring in America, I just had someone on the show the other day tell me it feels a little more like, it's about the business, and you're looked at as more of a commodity. And it seems like the promoters, and the people that have venues and stuff over in Europe seem a little more hospitable to acts. I think that is that part. Is that accurate? Is that why touring in Europe seems to be a little more pleasurable than dealing with us assholes here in the States?
Well, yeah, and to be fair, that is changing.
Yeah.
Good.
That's good to hear. Yeah.
There's a lot of clubs that are kind of doing it the right way. And I think the reason why is because they're seeing how acts are getting treated over there. And they're like, man, why can't we get these acts to, especially like, got bands like us, kind of the more middle, mid-card, I guess you would say, the touring acts, is because, why would we, if we got an opportunity, even though, yes, it's more that unlovable travel that we just talked about, but if you're going to get paid well and you're going to get treated well, it's kind of hard to turn it down. Whereas it's like, okay, we're going to stay home, but the money's not as good, and they're going to fight you tooth and nail on everything, and it's getting a little better, but and the reason why is I think there's a little more competition out there.
Yeah.
As far as promoters, guys are like, wait a minute, especially guys who used to be in the business on our side of it. And they're like, fuck this. I'm going to open a club and treat people right. And guess what? I'm going to get all these bands, and people are going to, wonder why. And it's a little goes a long way when you're traveling. Anything that makes any one thing that makes your life easier is going to pay dividends, as far as respect and reciprocating like business and stuff like that, because I'll tell you straight up, when we get itineraries, and granted, there are some places in Europe that we're just like, no, it's like logistically bad, promoter bad, whatever. But, there's a great thing. Like, when, we get our itinerary, we can tell these clubs, some of them are going to be great, and some of them have a reputation of being really bad.
Right.
And, it's just one of those things. And a lot of times the bad clubs, they kind of know that they're the only game in town. So they're like, what the fuck else are you going to do between these 2 days driving? You're going to drive, or you're going to stop here and play a show? And they know that. But,
right. So growing up, man, how soon did you know that music was the avenue you're going to take? Was there anything else that was on the, that was on the horizon, man, that you thought about doing, man, or were you locked into music from an early age?
Well, just like a lot of kids growing up, I wanted to, want to play football,
Yeah.
But, everybody wanted to play, would be a professional athlete or something. But then when it became painfully obvious that I wasn't going to be a professional athlete,
that's tough.
Well, it's just, I'm a fucking, I run the 40 in like 40 years, so it's like I wasn't going to be. But no, as far as music goes, I remember, I always liked music, and my parents had a really cool vinyl collection growing up, and we had a record player. So I remember listening to like, of course, like, the Beatles' White Album, like Are You Experienced, Vanilla Fudge, like Cactus, and like all these like, 60s and 70s bands, and the stuff they listen to. Like, my dad really loves the Moody Blues. It's not metal, but it's, you listen to all this different music coming up. And but as far as the guitar, I think, I always thought the guitar was really cool. There's, it's kind of hard to like look at, growing up MTV, Eddie Van Halen guys, just, making all these cool noises and just fucking rocking and, making it. And that's the main thing, like making it look like a lot of fun. And
right. So you feel like the guitar chose you, more so than the other way around?
Yeah, I would say so, because originally I wanted to play the drums.
Yeah.
I wanted to hit some stuff, and it was like, and then what really sold me on the guitar was Dimebag. And I know a lot of guys say that, and it's not necessarily the licks or anything. Of course, I grew up, learning the songs and learning all as much of the licks as I can. But as far as like that playing kind of like staying with me, not really. I don't really imitate a lot of his stuff or try to play like him at all. But he made that instrument look so fun and just like so cool, and just like, and the fact that he was so fucking good, but like so nonchalant about it, but not in a fucking egotistical way. Just like he's just a dude, and you forget how awesome of a musician he is. And those are the type of guys I love.
I've said that about stuff like when I see him on documentaries and stuff. You know what I mean? He never seemed very pretentious. He just seemed like he just seemed like every fan that he met, he treated them like they were a friend of 20 years. Like he knew him forever. Yeah.
And that, and just his approach towards everything. Like, I really, maybe his internal process was a lot more technical than he led on. But at the end of the day, the things that he said just made sense. It's like, it doesn't sound good. use it. You know, does this lick sound cool? Play it. Doesn't matter if it's not a million fingers or a million miles an hour. Does it sound awesome when you play that lick? People go,
yeah.
You know, that's the whole thing. You know, with that aspect of it. You know, that's the funny thing is when you get to a certain level, like he'd spent so many years practicing and being to be that good. It got to a point where that part of the playing was secondary. It just was internalized, and he was just more worried about making sounds that sounded good, you know.
Well, I know the Abbott brothers are from Texas, but somewhere along the line, it almost feels like Pantera got lumped in with like the Louisiana metal scene. You know what I mean? Probably because of Phil's association, like with Louisiana. But so much was made, like like when they went back out again and started doing this now. And I love it. I just saw them open up for Metallica here in upstate New York with Suicidal Tendencies. You know, they were in a big dome stadium, 50,000 people. It was nice to see them out there doing it, man. Like, what do you feel? It's been a polarizing topic because there's lots of people who just love to dump on stuff. This isn't Pantera. This is, you know what I mean? But I'm just happy that people are getting to see those songs, though, man. But like, you're like a Louisiana guy, man. I mean, like, where do you stand on the whole, I guess, for lack of a better word, Pantera, reunion, call it what you want.
Right. Well, my thing is like, at first, like, I remember, like, you want to talk about, hell freezing over, pigs flying, that type of thing. I remember, for years, it was like, and I remember telling people, like, there's no fucking way this is ever going to happen.
We'll never see it. Yeah.
It'll never see the light of day. And, and then all of a sudden, like before any of it ever came out, I was just get a phone call. Kirk calls me and he told me what was going on. And I was like, I just talked to, Philip and they're going to do this thing. And I was like, holy shit, man. And what's crazy is the first thing that I thought of when he said that was them, intro music, big kabuki drop, going right into a new level. And that's exactly, that was the first, I was like, if they don't start the fucking show like that, they're stupid.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they were. But anyway, back on the subject, it's like, if you aren't into the idea, then there is no law on this earth that commands you to participate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, if you don't want to have fun, then fucking stay home. If you want to, if you want to go and, and do the thing, then do it. I really feel that, at this point in time, it's like, who the fuck is anybody to gatekeep that shit?
Yeah. Well, a couple things that make me angry is the people that'll say that it's a cash grab. I mean, first of all, these guys are musicians. This is how they make their living, man. What do they say? I mean, no one's going to go to their job and do it for free. And then you get people who say, Phil and Rexx just went out and got a couple of hired guns. These are not hired guns, man. These are guys that are part of the Pantera family. I mean, Zach and Charlie, man, like are old friends. I mean, Zach and Dime were like brothers. Yeah, I mean, these are just not just a couple of guys that they just went and plucked off of a bar stool somewhere to fill those spots. You know what I mean? Like,
right. So two things on that. It's like, the first thing is like, if you tell me you don't know fucking anything about the music business without telling me, if you really believe that Daryl and Vinny's estate aren't seeing any of this money, I'll fucking, I got a fucking bridge over China to sell you, however that saying goes or whatever. The second part is like, like you were talking about, just like the controversy and this and that. It's like, man, I always say it like this. It's like, nobody ever asked anybody to take a side.
Right. Right.
And if people really, really felt that badly about it on the Abbott brothers side of it, till this day, then why are they at the shows? Why do you see pictures of them talking to these people and stuff?
Right. And I mean, obviously Rita is still alive. I haven't seen her at any shows, vehemently protesting any of this. You know what I mean? So like, as you say, man, eventually I think people got to a point, man, where, hatchets have been buried, I hope.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. Like we've been so many places, like we've played in Dallas plenty of times and Rita's come out and always been so nice, hospitable.
Yeah.
It sucks because every time she's like, come over to the house after the show, whatever. But like, we always got to beat feet, but it would be so great to fucking go to the Mecca, and check it out, but no, I really feel that, the other thing too, another thing with when they announced like who was going to do what, I knew from like instantly, we were like, dude, if they don't get Charlie, man, like, dude, I mean, not only does he have the chops, obviously, but him and Vinny were great friends. So if this was going to happen, he would be the guy. And the same thing with Zach. And I remember everybody was shitting on Zach when this first started. And they're like, oh, you should have got this guy and this guy and this guy. And to every dude that somebody mentioned, the question was, who is that?
Right.
This dude, he might be able to play all this shit perfectly, but nobody knows who he is. He wouldn't draw a dime in Shitsville with a truckload of fucking toilet paper.
Right.
And that's part of it too. It has to be an event, you know?
Because and I think the music should be represented by somebody, man, who has like a stake in it. You know what I mean? Like obviously there was a kinship between like him and Dime. So, he's going to be invested in going out and doing this stuff, the most justice he possibly can. Not just go through the motions.
Yeah. And where that got proven is the amount of time that they spent on the guitar tone and bringing in and making it work, because, Zach's more like a fucking Jimmy Page type dude.
Yeah.
He's not, he didn't have the teeth, he's an amazing player, but don't get me wrong. He's one of the best to ever fucking pick it up. But once again, we're talking about styles versus, I think I'm a pretty good guitar player, but I'm not a country, I'm not a chicken picking, I'd be way out of my element. It would take me fucking a long time to be able to feel comfortable doing that type of shit. But same thing with Zach. It's like, we're talking about metal here, but like I said, it's a completely different style. Like he had to put a few more teeth in the gears.
Right.
So it's tighter. So he fucking sat there and worked on it. And I think it's great because it shows the vulnerability of somebody who's a professional. Yeah. And that's not a slight to him whatsoever. It just goes to show you none of this shit's easy for anybody, especially in a situation like him where he's got a lot of roles to fill with his different, doing Black Label, Zach Sabbath. He's coming in and out.
Right.
But it's like, you're trying to do justice, because I wouldn't even say the word replace. It's fucking impossible.
Yeah, sacrilegious almost. Yeah, it is. Yeah, nobody replaces Dime. But I can attest to the fact that April 19th, I was in Syracuse's Carrier Dome, and it was fucking amazing. So, I mean, at the end of the day, man, at the end of the day, man, the result is a kick-ass show. They shattered the previous attendance record from 1982. It was The Who, 47,000. So they jammed more than 47,000 people into there. Metallica is just on a whole other planet, man. Say what you want about them, and I know that they get shit on a lot too, man. They kick down so many doors. That's the other thing that really rubs me the wrong way. The people that want to shit on Metallica, the evolution of their sound, the hiccups that people perceive throughout their career, albums that they think weren't up to snuff for Metallica. Seems like some of these people just want those same first 4 albums just regurgitated constantly. I mean,
right. And
how do you grow as an artist, though? I mean, that's got to be boring to an artist.
Well, it's funny that you say, they just want them to regurgitate these albums again. But if they did, get fucking shit on for that too.
They'd shit on that, yeah.
And that's why I think I said this the last time that we spoke. It's like, this is very sound clippable or whatever. We don't write a fucking single note for the fans.
Right.
And I know
it
sounds harsh when I say it like that.
Right.
But we make shit that we like, and we're just very fortunate that other people like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing, because if you say, oh, we're going to make this record for the fans, or this is going to be our fucking Trouble Psalm 9 record, or whatever, like shit that we love, if you say you're going to do that, it always falls flat because it sounds forced. It sounds like you tried to do something, and it never works, man. So you just got to go, you got to do what you want and just hope, and be grateful, like I said, that people want to hear it, because if it was, up to some of our fans, they'd want us to just make Oddfellows Rest over and over and over.
Yeah.
But it's never going to happen because it's already been done. And if you want to hear that record, go listen to it. That's why it got made.
Yeah. It'll be there forever. It'll be there forever.
Absolutely. So, and then, and people try to say, I don't know, if they think it's gonna be impressive that they were brutally honest with us or whatever, but it's like, people would be like, I don't really care for the new material. I'm like, but you're still here.
Right.
So like, obviously, okay, even if you're not a biggest fan of this material, you like the way we're presenting it, at least, some of the new stuff, but, and here's the thing, what's new will eventually become old. Cause I've been, technically, I've been in a band actually, because me and Kirk actually get in arguments about this sometimes, very lighthearted, obviously, but about how long I've been in the band, and he started bringing up some shit, and he's like, no, he goes, no, man, I wasn't on any records or anything, but when I first started doing gigs with them, they weren't really playing a lot. But it was like fucking first gig I ever actually played with the band was right after Katrina.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that year anyway, not right after, but that year. So it's been a minute, but like the albums that I have been, I watched it from, now stuff from Sever the Wicked Hand is considered like vintage, and people are starting to ask for all these fucking tunes. I'm like, why are you fucking asking for these tunes when we put the record out, But it's just the way things are. People need to fall in love with shit,
And now why do you think, because you're out there on the road, you're probably doing meet and greets, you're meeting fans or whatever. Why do you think, from a fan's perspective, man, like, why do you think, people tap into Crowbar? Like, I know you mentioned earlier in the interview that some of the heaviness has to do with the vulnerability and just the talking about the bare bones of life sometimes in Kirk's lyrics. You think that's what resonates with people the most? Like, why do people sink their teeth into Crowbar? Obviously, the music can be off-putting for some people. Not everybody says, God damn, I want my music that heavy. You know what I mean? Like, it's a special breed of people who show up and want to have their fucking head blown off like that. You know what I mean? So, like right. What is it about that band?
Well, I think honestly, it's because, there's a few different things, but the thing I can say from a fan standpoint, growing up as a fan of the band before I was in it was just, once again, it was just like, it would paint a mood, a picture.
Yeah.
And but not always the same one. Like a phrase that I coined kind of, and Kirk uses it a lot. It's like, we only paint with one color in this band.
Yeah.
But it's just different shades of the same color. It's like a charcoal sketch or something. We're just using, we're making it thinner here or darker here. It's just like, and that goes because we listen to a lot of different styles of music, so like we cross over to like the hardcore crowd a lot,
Yes, I can see that. Yeah.
We do a lot of hardcore shows, and we've got invited, we tour with Suicidal Tendencies, direct support for them, kind of like hardcore kind of punk stuff. And like, we kind of we can go a lot of places. We can mingle with the death metal crowds. We got heavy tunes, heavy shit. And we can mingle with the punks or all the different type of stuff. So I think it's a good like kind of slice of heavy, and we all like different styles of music too. So it kind of gets incorporated. But I think the other thing too that makes it palatable for people is we're not doing the crazy vocals. Yeah, Kirk's voice is very, like he always says, he goes, I can sing in pitch. It's just the quality of my voice is dog shit.
Right.
It's very, very true. I know a lot of guys like that are good. They're good singers in the sense that they can hit pitches and stuff. They just don't have a great quality of voice. Just like you could take a guitar that's perfectly in tune and everything, but if you play it through an amp that doesn't have a good tone, it's in tune. It just doesn't sound good. But in this regard, with Kirk's voice is the graveliness and the low tune guitars. It's just a great mix, And
as he gets older, do you see him do anything? Does he ascribe to any type of voice care, or is he just able to roll off the tour bus and just go do that? Now that he's getting older and he's got a lot of albums under his belt, man, do you see him, man? Does he have any little tricks or rituals or anything that he does?
He just yells really loud a few times before we get
wow,
out there.
That's impressive. That's fucking impressive, though. I mean,
just start low, and bring it all the way up, like really loud. It's funny because he'll just be like, he'll take a sip of water or whatever, beer or whatever he's drinking, and do it real quick. He's like, all right,
let's go. Yeah.
And sometimes, man, his voice will be really fucked up, from just having to do shows in a row and get a cold and just get tore up. The fact that and that's the thing. It's like he's constantly just blowing his voice out every night. And
right.
So that's kind of.
I know at 60 years old, and I've seen pictures, from following him on Facebook. Robin's out there a lot of times, man. He seems like he has a nice, cozy family life at home. You mentioned he's 60 years old. Has he ever talked about or a stop date, or will he do this until the wheels fall off? Do you feel like that Kirk, has made any mention or hinted at, not to put you on the spot and speak for him, man, but has he thought about like an exit strategy or saying, hey guys, I probably got X amount of albums left or X amount of years that I really, really won't want to put myself through this?
Well, I think honestly, the honest answer to that is, he'll know, and put it this way, he'll know before anybody else does. But it'll be one of the things where it's like he'll his thing is like when he said it to me several different. He's like, you know, when I just can't do this to a level that's acceptable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like I totally get why some artists are like, yeah, I can't fucking do this the way that I want to.
But then there are a lot out there that are still taking people's money, man, that can't do it, that are still out there acting like they can, though. I respect the fact of like a Steven Tyler saying, all right, man, I can't do this no more. We're not going to go out there and take your money. I'm going to step off. You know what I mean? Because there are plenty of bands out there who would say, I can't do it no more. So I'll use backing tracks and cheats and smoke and mirrors, and we'll still go out there and take your money and perpetuate like we're playing a live show.
Right. And, you know, sometimes, you know, it can be thought of definitely as taking people's money. But I can say from being, you know, doing this as you know, the time that I have, there's been guys doing it way longer than me. I'm not any sort of stalwart of the business, but it's hard to stop doing it also.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you will tell every lie, you know, and no matter what we're talking about, performance at any sort of job or any sort of thing where people are going to pay money.
Yeah.
Well, you'll lie to yourself till the fucking end that you still got what it takes, you know?
Right. You've got the chops. Yeah.
Well, we're, you know, interesting enough, this turns right back into fighting. How many guys should have fucking retired?
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, their whole career is marred by like the last 3 or 4 fights of their career where they just didn't fucking have it anymore.
Yeah. You know? Well, there's that, and then I see a lot of them come on my boxing podcast that unfortunately, man, you know, they lose their faculties. They stuck around and probably took too many punches or whatever, and then like the quality of life has gone down, you know what I mean? Because they've, you know, they stayed around and took too much punishment when they didn't really need to. Or maybe they did need to, or felt they need to, or didn't have their financial house in order and thought, you know what I mean? You know, like the old Rocky thing, I got problems, I got to fight, just a couple more, you know? I mean, I dig myself out, you know?
Yeah, and then, you know, a lot of that too, once again, like, goes back to like, you know, whether we're talking about a fight camp or a crew or guys in a band, it's like, you know, there comes that uncomfortable point. You know, I remember watching a documentary about Chuck Liddell, and John Hackleman got very emotional talking about, I was too much of his fucking friend when I should have been his coach and told him, dude, you're done.
Yeah.
You know, like he said he noticed, you know, when Chuck was like losing his chin kind of, he's getting older from taking all that fucking abuse over the years, you know? Your body can only take so much, and then finally it's like, no, man, fuck this. And then,
but unfortunately, a lot of those people surround themselves like with yes men, though. You know what I mean? They don't put enough of those honest people in their lives, though. That's the sad part, you know?
And, you know, yeah, and that was like, you know, much respect to John Hackleman for admitting that in on tape. But man, he took the blame for it, you know, which it's two to tango, you know, but, you know, props for him for saying, that's on me. I should have told him it was fucking, you know, I was too much of his friend and not his fucking coach, you know. But
now let's say hypothetically, you know, at 60 years old, like let's say, I mean, just for shits and giggles, you know, a couple years down the road, you know what I mean? Like, you know, Kirk decides to put an end to Crowbar and you're still, you know, in your 40s, you know, like, would you try to start something, another musical project or catch on with another band? Or would it be like another venture? Would you go off in another avenue? Obviously, you've got the martial arts background. You've you know, you're interested in teaching that. You know, what would it be for you? Like, would you stay steeped in music after you've done it for this long and been out on the road and been doing it and grinding, or would it be a different route?
Well, you know, that's a great question, man. You know, like just like anything, you know, music stuff, the burnout's real. So, you know, there could be time, you know, who knows in a couple of years where things are going to lead. But as far as like if that happened now, just hypothetically, you know, I'm pretty sure, you know, I'd get a couple of phone calls about doing stuff, and you know,
definitely,
you know, it would be cool to, like, you know, I've always wanted to do, you know, work more in the studio and play on people's albums because I really do like collaborating with people. So it'd be really cool to get like, you know, a guitar player that I like, or, you know, a guitar player maybe that I've never really done any work for. It's like, hey man, I'd really like to work with you. You know, do like a cool album. So there's a couple of dream albums I would love to do. But
are you interested in anything that would be outside of the norm of what we know you to play? You know what I mean? Like, hey, like, have you ever seen yourself? Have you ever seen yourself saying, "Damn, I've got a blues album in me, or a classic rock album, or a jazz album"? You know, is there an itch that you're dying to scratch that maybe isn't scratched by like the intensity that you play with now?
Yeah, and honestly, it would just be like I would want to just like record a bunch of cool, like, you know, guitar music, you know, at you know, to kind of make it simplistic, but at the same, you know, I would like to have something that had some different elements, you know.
Yeah.
Like I said, we paint with one color in Crowbar, but we're allowed to be very creative with the one color.
Right.
But you know, like, dude, I haven't played a gig on a fucking clean tone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like 20-something years. You know? It'd be cool to have, you know, have just some stuff with some dynamics. And of course, I love classic rock. Like, you know, like we all love classic rock. I'd love, you know, to make a record where, you know, maybe I've thought about it a lot of different ways. You know, maybe have some tracks where it's like, man, this would sound great with so and so singing on it. You know, call them up. Hey, man, are you interested in singing on this track? You know, and just stuff like that, you know, or man, this guitar track, man, this has got, you know, so-and-so written all over it. Call him or her up and just be like, yeah, you interested in doing this? So I'd love to just get out there and do some stuff like that. Another thing I'd really like to do is I'd love to start writing music or making entrance music for pro wrestlers. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. A lot of people
That's
know
cool. That's cool. I like that. I'm a big pro wrestling fan too. Now, do you like where pro wrestling is right now? Because I mean, I'm obviously one of those guys that really remembers the golden era of the '80s. I was a big mark for the Ultimate Warrior and the Macho Man, and I'm 52 years old, so I remember that era. The Attitude Era was great too, man. Like when they were cussing in the late '90s, and I used to watch a lot of WCW. I loved what they were doing with the NWO stuff back then. I mean, like you like the current product? Like which one do you watch? Are you a WWE guy, an AEW?
So honestly, I watch a lot of different wrestling. You know, and of course, growing up, being from Southern Louisiana, you know, we're all WCW guys. Like,
love it. Yeah.
Fuck everybody else. Because, you know, I mean, honestly, for us, it was like what we knew because they would come down here, and run house shows all the time.
Yep.
Even when it was, you know, Crockett before Turner bought it.
Yep.
They were always down here, and plus on cable down here, we had them on 4 times on the weekend, twice on Saturday, twice on Sunday. Whereas like we didn't get a lot of WWF at the time, WWF product, and if it was on Saturday, it was a recap show,
right?
You know? So, like, it wasn't really, you know, you get a Saturday night main event every once in a while, but anyway, like as far as today, I watch a lot of the product. Not the biggest AEW fan, just like the way that they present a lot of the stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of guys, you know, everybody hates me now because I just said that, but like, you know, once again, it's a free world. You know, there's a lot of stuff that all these guys do, but the WWE product right now is on fire, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was just talking to a friend of mine about, you know, another wrestling buddy of mine. It's like, they really have enough meat on the bone for a third main roster show. There's so many talented guys and angles that they could run with like obviously, you know, the logistics of that, but man, if you could come up with, you know, bring back WCW Saturday night. Yeah.
And that probably is a good idea because a lot of those guys usually split and go to other federations because they're not getting the TV time or getting their character fleshed out a lot, which is why they'll jump ship. So it probably behooves them to start like another show and, you know, get these guys exposure and try to get them to catch on.
Right. And, you know, I really do like how, you know, there is no taboo anymore about cross-promotional stuff. Like, I really like how the WWE is like, they're working with TNA and, you know, they just bought AAA. So that's interesting. You can bring those guys in, and, you know, the guys that they signed, that they brought in from AEW that they're using now, like, man, Penta's fucking, that was $1 million fucking signing. Yeah. He fucking crushed it. That guy can work with anybody.
When you were a kid, I mean, like, were you a kid? You know, back when you were a kid, like, were you like a mark for any specific wrestler? Like, I know they use that term a lot, like when you were really into a guy.
Oh man, so obviously, like growing up, I really liked when I was younger. I mean, still love him to this day, watching all the old matches and stuff. But I really Jake the Snake Roberts because he was the only fucking guy that wasn't yelling.
Yes, I know.
But still, just like.
His promos were impactful, man. He said a lot in a very hushed tone, man, but you really got in there and listened.
Yeah, you got a guy with like a 12-foot Burmese python speaking real soft. You're going to listen to him.
Yeah. And he's like 6'7". He was a big guy, too. Big.
Yeah, so that's one thing. I knew he was a big guy, but years ago, we played at the old Masquerade in Atlanta, the old location. They had the 3 different buildings, and they had like a WrestleCon, and they were doing like some matches, and he was like there as a guest, and we're loading up the trailer, and I see him walking out, you know, he's got a, big, leather duster on and shit. And I didn't want to bother him, because he'd probably been getting bothered all night, but I'm looking, I'm like, oh shit, it's Jake Roberts, man. I'm like,
yeah.
And granted, I think he might've been wearing boots or something, but still guy's fucking huge,
Yeah.
man. You know, I didn't realize.
Last thing you want to do is catch a DDT out there on the sidewalk. That's not a good look.
Fuck that, man. He's not gonna do me like Steamboat, you know.
I was gonna say, man. I mean, dude, man, like you're slapping guys in fucking wrist locks and arm bars, man. So maybe Jake wouldn't have fared so well. I don't know. I mean, shit, that DDT's only gonna fucking work, man, if it's scripted.
Hey, man, if he hits it, it's over with. That's how
it works. It's over. Yeah.
Like, well, you know.
Listen, man, I appreciate you being so generous with your time. I could sit here and chop it up with you all night. I've got to find a way to get to that show. For God's sakes, I'm taking the wife to see Steve Winwood, man. Fucking the week after that at the casino, man. So I got to find a way. You know, it's like there's so much time to work these shows in, man. You know what I mean? And I'm also going to see in August here at the casino. I'm going to see Diamond Dave do his fucking solo thing.
Oh, nice. But yeah, dude. Hey, man, catch you some Blue-Eyed Soul, old Stevie Wynn, and then yeah. Dude, so the David Lee Roth thing is pretty interesting. You know, I like that he's still doing shit. And that's another thing. Like, you know, a lot of people like to shoot shit about David Lee Roth, man. But one thing you can say about him is he's always been fucking David Lee Roth.
Well, if you watch recent videos of him, man, you know, he just did a festival. Then he's laying low until this until he fires up this solo show. So he's doing all the Van Halen stuff from his era. But what he's finally figured out how to do, and he's another of those guys who took a whipping on his voice for a while. Oh, he's shot. He doesn't have the chops no more. But he's found a way now to do those songs in the right register, and he's got a great band. He's got this guy who's really pulling off the Eddie parts, and he's got these 3 black soul singers that are really, really helping him do justice to these songs. And it's amazing what he's doing right now. Amazing.
That's great, man. And you know what? That is a thing with singers. Like I've noticed, even like Halford, he sings and is some shit. He sings differently, but it's still him. You know, and honestly, you know, to think that somebody's voice wouldn't change over fucking 40, 50 fucking years.
That's an irresponsible comparison to make, to say somebody can't replicate what they did 40 years ago. That's just crazy.
Well, it just reminds me when people show pictures of Arnold at like the Olympia, and then that picture of him by the pool, you know, when he was like the governor or whatever. It's like, oh, a guy who's, you know, all these years later doesn't look the same when he was at his prime in his 20s. Right. Like, shocker, you know? I'm
sorry, the guy's in his 70s and has flabby arms and man tits. That happens to all of us at some point.
Wait till you're fucking 70, bro.
Yeah. But I got to find a way to get in that building, though, because the Lost Horizon, where you guys are playing, is a legendary dive bar, man. I don't know if you guys have played there before. The low ceiling, the sound, it fucking really rumbles in there, man. I've seen so many thrash and death metal shows there, man. It is just an iconic little, like, you wouldn't fucking even pay it any mind if you drove by it, man. You can Google it, Lost Horizon in Syracuse, New York. It is a small little place, man, but some of the fucking most legendary concerts I've seen have gone down in that building, man.
I'm more than 99% sure that we played that. I know we've done plenty of gigs in Syracuse, and that venue, like if I look at it, I'll be able to tell you 100%. But
yeah, you will.
Anytime we play anywhere in New York State, it fucking goes off, man. And like we had the the Sepultura tour when we did it in the States, like they popped up into Canada for 2 shows.
Yeah,
and it was one of those things where just the logistics of it for us, it was going to be kind of like a lose for us to do those shows money-wise. So, the border crossing and then just like the pay for that show. And I was like, you know what? We cleared it with Sepultura, and they were there. We've worked with them so many times over the years. They're like, yeah, fuck, whatever, man. We're not going to take any slight to it. So they went and popped into Canada for 2 shows, and we did. I think it was Syracuse and Rochester. I'm not sure. But we did those shows and it was great, And
I'm pretty sure the last time you were in Syracuse, it was at a newer venue downtown called the Song and Dance.
Okay.
Yeah. Which doesn't sound like it would be hosting metal shows, man, but it is though, man. Like most of the stuff that comes there is a metal show. Kind of a cheesy name for a band that's going to bring in like metal shows, man. But they've been bringing it since they've been open. It's only been like a couple of years, 3-4 years, maybe.
That's great, and that's the thing. It really is about about community, If the venues don't survive, then the scene won't, and it's tough.
And thankfully, metal shows don't cost you an arm and a leg, but like sometimes you just want to go to everything, man. And like some of the shows are just so like, I mean, me and my son going to see Metallica. I mean, you're dropping $100 to set up on the nosebleeds, man, like per seat. You know what I mean? It's not what it used to be. I mean, going to see Steve Winwood, not as bad. Going to see Diamond Dave, not terrible, man, but you're certainly not paying, $15-20 to get in these places, I mean.
Right. And, and that's the thing. It's a juggling act because you want to try to make everything affordable, but you have to make some money. And
absolutely.
And that's the thing. I really, once again, you have to kind of remind yourself of these things because you get kind of caught in the groundhog day of doing gigs, and you can easily turn it into a job if you really think about it enough, So it's like, what I try to do is put myself in people's shoes. It's like you look at the event calendar in the club and like, of all the fucking shows they could have seen this month, hey, maybe they saw other ones, but they definitely paid money to see this one.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I think it is on what. And I think the good thing is that you guys are playing on one of those obscure, like random fucking Tuesday night shows. So it might be a good reason to call in to work the next day too. That's always a good thing too. I mean, like one of those like, hey, I'm going to pop out there on a Tuesday night. I mean, from my door to the door of the Lost Horizons, probably like 35 or 40 minutes. So it's like a hop, skip, and a jump for me.
Yeah, well, dude, come on down. Just let me know you're coming, man. I can take care of you. It's no big deal. We get you.
Awesome. That'd be great. Yeah, I would love to, man. And then get a chance to say hi in person or whatever, man. Yeah, absolutely, man.
It'd be great. Like I said, it's going to be a great tour. I know at least one of the shows already, it was at a smaller club and it sold out. So we're going to do a matinee show there too. So we're going to be fucking cool. Yeah, we're going to be working, man. It's going to be that's going to be a fun one.
And I've had Jimmy on the podcast a couple of times too, man. So I could shoot him a message and say I'm coming out to it though too. He's a great guest too.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, just fucking let us know you're coming out and, we'll take care of it, man. It'll be a good time. Good to see everybody.
Yeah, that'd be great. Listen, man, I appreciate you being so generous for your time, man. I'll definitely take you up on that. I got to get that. I've yet to actually see CROWBAR in the live setting. Either it's been like bad timing. I work in healthcare as a nurse, so it's been on a weekend where I've had to work, can't get the time off. It just it always just seems like it's one thing or another. There's been a couple extreme metal bands that I have just missed. Like Obituary's been on my bucket list for fucking ever, man, and it just seems like they're always like a little farther away than I'd like to drive because I've had a couple back surgeries, spending a lot of time in the car. Just by the time I get there, it just makes it a miserable fucking night. You know what I mean? Or it's a bad night, or work wise, schedule wise. It's literally always something. I have reached out to those guys to come on the podcast. I have gone to their website, man. Well, the thing that's cool about them is that they got that cool space in Florida where they rehearse. And they'll do virtual concerts there where they'll just rip through a whole fucking album and they're just chilling in this fucking practice space. And some of those are really cool. You know what I mean? Like you buy them on the internet or whatever, but you feel like you're right there with them hanging out,
Yeah. And, honestly, I thought about it. Like we were talking about just different ways to make shit cool for fans. I was like, we could figure out how to do it to where it's, it's not stifling, creatively. If we could have like, people just watching us in the creative process.
Yeah.
It'd be a little weird just because you constantly be doing kind of like the fourth wall thing,
right.
Like, that type of shit. But it's like, and then sometimes you're kind of worried about being, filmed and whatever, what if you're like, just not in a good mood and you just like, fuck this, whatever, you don't want people to see the daily grind, but it'd be kind of cool. Like I've often thought about doing that. Like it would be great instead of like, spending the budget that we do on videos, and it's not a slight to the guys that have taken their time to direct and film and do all the stuff, they put in hard work, but it's kind of like, to me anyway, just my opinion, the video is kind of a dead medium in the sense that there's, other than YouTube, there's really not an outlet, there's no music, there's music video channels anymore. And it's like, and especially in this day and age, it seems like it would be so much easier to do that because you could just almost like put it on shuffle. There's so much material out now. Somebody just needs to start a 24-hour video channel again. What a concept.
Yeah. And plus, you pour a lot of money into the video. It's a lot like your album, man. Like how you were saying, like it's a track world nowadays. Like people might watch the first like 30 seconds of it and say, they equate it to a song. Even though they're watching something that should be seen as visual, you know what I mean? Like they're still saying, this is not for me. Next, you know what I mean? Like, and then you spend all this money and it's not even just a song, man. Now you've translated it into something visual that people are just scrolling right on by,
Right. And that's the whole thing. It's like you kind of run the risk of, and people are very particular to nowadays. People find certain things disturbing or whatever that they may not have found disturbing some years ago. So we make content kind of based on what we grew up liking or whatever.
Right.
But it might receive backlash. Oh, this is too fucking graphic, or this is a little too extreme for a music video, whereas like, you know, back in a certain time it wouldn't be. So it's kind of like it's a different minefield, you know, with that type of stuff. So to alienate somebody, like you said, 30 seconds into a video could be a problem. But I often like thought about, you know, I would love to take the budget like that the label would give us for 2 videos and just put that into a fucking like a home video type thing. Because honestly, I think that people would really enjoy seeing, you know, kind of how the goofy shit that goes on, you know,
behind the scenes stuff. Yeah,
like more of a documentary style thing, because we're not like the Pantera videos. We're not like running around doing a lot of crazy stuff, but it would be kind of. I feel like it would be cool to give people a little bit of an insight of like, you know, just like, hey man, this is what we did to come see you guys, you know, like the travel, this is what we do, you know, this is how it works in the studio with us, you know, and there'll obviously be entertaining moments, you know, where we're cutting up.
Or like even something that's like travel log, you know what I mean, like video travel log, you know what I mean, like even something like that, like what you're doing, you know, in between, you know what I mean, because I think people that are hardcore fans of the band will even find it interesting. Oh, hey man, like they stop off here, they do this, they do that, here's their ritual, you know what I mean, like I mean there's fans that are so like hardcore, man, that they would probably watch like you guys in a fucking van and what you guys chop it up about and talk about and argue over musical selections and what you're going to listen to, or sit there and watch Kirk fucking take a nap, or, you know, fucking whatever, you know, I mean,
whatever. Yeah. And the thing is, it's like, you know, it's one of those things that like, it was a popular thing for a long time, and people got it doing it. And like, I think it's like, you know, what's old is new again. It's something that, you know, I think that if we did it, it would be very, it would be cool. I think it would be something.
I remember extreme metal bands for a while were constantly making videos of like the behind the scenes, like the making of albums. I remember Cannibal Corpse fucking had a bunch of albums, man, like where it was just like, okay, here's where we traveled out to this place. You know what I mean? Here's where we went here. And we stayed in these, you know, we stayed in these little cabins on the ground or whatever. And, you know what I mean? Here we went in the woods and we fucking shot some stuff. Here's the night that we did this. You know what I mean? Here's the night that we were shooting beer cans. Here's the night that we were, you know what I mean? Like, you know, gathered around and Jack Owens was playing fucking country songs on the guitar. You know what I mean? Like just different looks of how these guys move. You know?
Yeah, and I also thought of like an issue. We could say it's like, okay, well, if you want something to coincide with the album, you know, spend some of that money and basically make a documentary of us making the record and release it in like a box set type thing, something exclusive where you get the disc, you get like a little booklet or whatever, and you get the documentary, the making of this album. So as you're listening to it,
I think that might be the secret to getting people back invested into the physical product, so it doesn't die. You know what I mean? Offer them a bit more. You know what I mean?
That and just to get people interested in, and it sounds kind of crazy but just get people just like interested in metal again, and not the scenes and being this way or this has to be like this, and just everybody arguing.
Right.
And, it's funny because I notice it a lot in the wrestling business, going back to that, because I do have friends that are professional wrestlers, and we both, a lot of times I'll talk to some of these guys and gals, and what I think about a lot is they're in a similar business to where it's like there are fans that think they know more about the fucking business than the people doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, it's time to like, you know, lift the veil a bit and be like, hey, this is how things go. And like, you may not know all the shit you think you know.
Right.
And,
right.
You know, I get it, because like, granted, we don't really do anything in particular that's not much different than even local bands. We just have an elevated status and ability to create as opposed to, you know, like access to things. You know what I mean? So, you know, I can understand how a lot of people think, you know, or they can relate to what we do in a sense, and we're not above anybody in that regard, but it's like, you know, it does get frustrating, you know, when people try to tell you how things go.
No doubt. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I wish, you know, everybody would just kind of like, you know, lower their guns a little bit in the metal community. Cause it's like, you know, the term gatekeeping or whatever, but everybody likes to say that their shit's the best. Everything else sucks.
A lot of A lot of snobs. There are.
Yeah,
A lot of metal
exactly.
snobs.
That's a really long way of saying a lot of snobbery, but
yeah.
And it's fucking old, man. It's like we were talking about the Pantera thing, dude. If you don't like it, shut up. Go away.
Yeah, I'm not even so sure that I even agree with like some of these like websites, man, that go on and like review albums. I mean, music is just so subjective, man. Like, who are you to give it 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star? You know what I mean? Just I mean, you know, people are gonna go out and find what they find, and I don't think one person's opinion matters over another. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna not like the new Crowbar because some guy gives it 1 star or 5 stars. You know what I mean? You know.
Right. And sometimes it's kind of weird. Like, I can't say like Crowbar specifically, but I know for me personally, reading stuff, you know, back in the day, I'd read an album and some guy would be like, dude, this is the worst shit ever. I'd be like, it actually makes me want to go listen to it.
I know.
To hear what the worst shit ever sounded like. And sometimes I'd be like, what the fuck's this guy talking about? This is great. Like, you know, just think about how many fucking movies Siskel and Ebert gave 2 thumbs up that were like the worst pile of shit ever.
I know. And then masterpieces,
you know?
And then the flip side, masterpieces that they fucking him shit on. You know, I mean,
exactly.
You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, movies that are like cult classics, and they say cult classics, but it's like everybody loved them, but they didn't do well in the theater.
Right.
You know, that type of shit. It's like, you know, they'll try to sit there and slag the movie, be like, oh, it only made $6 million in the box office. It's like, yeah, but the home, it's like one of the most rented home movies.
Yeah,
you know,
it's timeless now. It's timeless. Yeah, it's timeless, man. I almost think it's almost better to catch on like with that cult following that you're talking about. You know what I mean? Because that will get passed on forever.
Honestly, it kind of reflects to kind of what we're doing as a band, because, you know, we're about as mainstream as we've ever been now. Yeah. You know, but there's always room, you know, to, you know, because honestly, it's like we want to get this music out to as many people as possible. You
Absolutely.
know? And it's kind of weird. It's one of those things. It depends on how you take stuff, because, you know, sometimes I'd read comments and it'd be like kind of disheartening to hear people being like, oh man, I didn't even know these guys were still making music, you know? And I'm like, fuck, man. Well, the first thing I'm thinking is, all right, well, who dropped the ball? You know, how does this somebody not know we're still making music?
Yeah.
But I take it as, all right, well, fucking, this is great though, because this is a way for somebody to get back into the band, or, you know, after doing this all this time, you know, guys that are, you know, my age or older being like, man, I never heard of you guys before. And I'm like,
right.
You know, at first you'd be like, all right, weird, we've been around for a while, but at the same time, it's like, that's kind of your own ego speaking, you know? It's like, oh, you haven't heard of us?
Right.
You know, we have been around for a long time, but, you know, hey man, people drop names and bands on me I've never heard of that have been around for years. So, you know, why are we any different? But no, instead of like, it's a good thing, because now it's like, oh great, well, we got more, you know, and that's one of the best things, you know, when we play a show, you love people telling you that they enjoyed it, but when somebody comes up and says, hey man, I've never fucking heard of you guys before, but fan for life now,
you've gained one. Yeah.
You can't beat that. Ultimate, man. That's.
And plus, I think nowadays, man, like it used to be when you were a fan, like, man, like you would be like, all right, man, my favorite band just made an album. Now I'm going to wait the 2 or 3 years, man, but I'm not going to forget about these guys. Now it seems like you go 4 or 5 years, man, and people have discovered a whole bunch of bands, and it's just like, so, you know, suddenly you're like yesterday's news, man. Like people don't, people are ready to jump ship and not be as loyal as they once were.
Yeah, and I think that just goes to the fact that there's just so much product out there, for lack of a better, you know, I just refer to it like it's fucking, you know, a thing, like a widget or whatever. But it's like, it really is, at the end of the day, if we want to talk about the business aspect of it, it is a product, you know? So it's like, there's just so much out there, and it's so much easier to create, you know, with all the home gear, the digital, it does such a good job. You can make, you know, gone are the days of like, you had to go into a studio, and, you know, now everybody's kind of like Tom Scholz from Boston, you know, making records in their basement.
Yeah. And the same thing with being an author. You can self-publish your books for free on Amazon now. Like whether or not anybody taps into them or buys them is a different story, but anybody can be a published author nowadays. You don't have to go to a fucking like a publishing house or submit your work to anybody. You can literally just go to Amazon, man, and fucking make up your fucking like your you know, the cover of your book, upload it right in there, man, and put it right on as an ebook.
Yeah. So I'm, you know, at that point, like, I guess, there's just a lot of static in the air, you know, with like, you know, so, I mean, and it's good, but it also, there's that, you know, just like when we go, like, try to figure out the merch spread for a tour, it's the same. You got to fit, once again, of course, you'd love to have all these fucking cool designs, but business-wise, you put too much shit out there, people have a hard time making a decision. 9 times out of 10, they won't make a decision.
Right.
You know, they'll just fucking walk away. So it's like, you know, you know, it's that same type of thing. You give them not enough choices, they're not interested. and that's just us as human beings. Not enough choices. We're kind of like, too much choices. You're overwhelmed. So you kind of got to figure out the happy medium. That's just like we were talking about 10 tracks on now.
Yep.
Solid. It's, same type of thing with no matter what we're doing. So it's like, that's our way of like trying to have a good solid footprint is like, you want to work with as many bands as possible to see, so many people can see you, but also, it's like, you network and you do all these things and you start making records, and then you realize it's like, okay, well, where do we fit in? And we have to fit in where we fit in as much as possible, like,
right.
Our niches and stuff like that. So, I think maybe that might have been the reason why an EYEHATEGOD Crowbar tour hadn't happened for a long time, just because it seemed like it was too fucking easy on paper. Like, man, this is like, we got to go out with these other bands or something. Nobody's going to want to, I don't know. It's like too much of one thing or too much of one scene or something. But everybody seems to be really on board.
This is too much Louisiana for me.
Right. But, hey, maybe if we did it every year, people wouldn't give a shit about it.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys could just have like a Louisiana fest. Just bring them all out. Soil and Green. Dig up everybody from the fucking Louisiana scene. I'll tell you what, it would be one hell of a fucking package because some great music has come out of fucking. You get fucking Jimmy pulling double duty. You get Down out there. You get a set from EYEHATEGOD. You guys. I mean, I know Soil and Green is still doing their thing. I had Brian on the podcast a couple months ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Like we always joke about those tours. I'm like, fuck, man, like. It would be such a clown fest.
It
would be so like, it would be the most professionally unprofessional thing on, just us.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Acid Bath is back doing stuff too, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, that's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure that's like everybody's like, pyramid, like dream tour would be like, Acid Bath, EYEHATEGOD, just like, all the names you used to write like on your notebooks.
Yeah.
Like,
Louisiana, fucking Louisiana Fest coming to a city near you. Yeah.
Because like we plan the same tour that we're doing here on the East Coast. We're planning on doing it on the same package on the West Coast. West Coast dates next year. Because everybody's got these scheduling conflicts until then. There's got prior stuff going on, but. It'd be great because, right when we announced the tour, everybody was like, super bummed out. There's no West Coast dates. So we're going to try to make it everywhere we can, and that's another really big misconception is like, the amount of control that the band itself really has over the booking. Why are you playing this place versus this place?
Everybody wants you to come to their backyard. Yeah, I know. That's tough. Yeah.
I always tell people it generally revolves around, like I said, it's a business. So it revolves around money and logistics, really. There's some places it's like, where people that are like, oh man, you guys got a day off in between. Why don't you stop here? And it's like, fucking tired, man. Like,
you're fried. You need a day to recharge the batteries. And plus, I think NOLA Fest sounds better than Louisiana Fest. Scratch Louisiana Fest. I'm going with NOLA Fest. I think sounds better.
Yeah, we could whatever you want to call it, man.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Depending on if you like it or not, you might have another,
if you want job security, man, maybe putting me on the guest list and bringing me there to Syracuse, man, you might not make it up on the stage. We might just end up fucking between combat sports and talking music, man. You might never make it up there, man. You might not want to catch me in the crowd and start shooting the shit. For God's sakes, you might not even get up there and fucking play. We can't keep our mouths shut here. I mean, I can sit here and talk to you all fucking night.
Well, hey, man, it's an easy conversation. It's like, hey,
it is.
It's one of those things. Obviously, I haven't done a lot of these, over time, but it's just,
you build up stuff to talk about too. You do. Yeah.
Well, hopefully more people invite me on, to have me on. I don't mind talking about, it's one of those things. It's like, you get kind of like I said, you can feel maybe burned out, doing this for a living, and maybe you don't feel like talking about it all the time.
Right.
You go to a family function, people start talking to you, kind of like, man, I'm just here for the fucking wedding or whatever family it's like. But it's when, this is more of like, it's cool, talk about a lot of different stuff. And
I try to make it that way too. I try to kind of go all around the board with it. Even with the boxers, I try to do that. Hey man, like what do you got to fight the round of your life. What song is in your head? What's the go-to meal after you've made weight and the fight is in the books? Try to keep it on music, keep it on food, rather than just those cookie cutter questions. Oh, how'd you start your career? Who was your toughest fight against? Yeah, I mean, I'll still try to thread those in there too in a roundabout way, man. But people don't always want the same fucking cookie cutter interview all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's why Joe Rogan is, not that I'm equating myself to him, but I think that's why he's been so successful with the free form conversation. It just feels like you're the third party and you're privy to like just two guys just shooting the shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I'll watch depending on who the guest is. I'll watch and I'm just sitting there watching. I find myself like trying to participate in the conversation.
Yeah, right.
What the fuck am I doing? But that's when it's a good, it's a good thing chiming in on it.
But if you're extending the invite, I'm there in September for fucking sure.
Yeah, man, come on out.
I will be. Yeah,
I will be. Out, you let us know. Like I said, you get in touch with me, get in touch with Jimmy, and
I will.
Happen, man.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna be at that, man. And it's always great talking to you, man. Really appreciate it, dude. This definitely won't be the last time, man. We'll definitely get up again, man. Like when the new record comes out, and for sure, I'll see you in September, man. I'm saying it on my podcast, so I'll stick to it because now it's cemented on the internet forever. September 21st, The Lost Horizon. I will be there.
Well, we will see you there.
Yeah, it's good talking to you, Matt. As always, man. Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thank you,
all right, later, brother. There he goes, folks. What an amazing conversation with an amazing dude. I could sit there and fucking fritter away the whole fucking night chopping it up with Matt Brunson, guitar player extraordinaire for the heaviest fucking band. I'll say it myself. Crowbar out of New Orleans, man, where they make the music heavy, fucking thick. That's right. I just used the word thick to describe music, man. Fucking the New Orleans sound, second to none, man. Matt is just such a great guest. I love chopping it up with him. And like I said, could have done so all fucking night long. As usual here on Pod Scum, we were all over the fucking board with it, talking about this, that, and the third. And that's what a good podcast is right there, man. So with that being said, my sincerest gratitude to Matt Brunson. Always a great guest. Always love chopping it up with him. And I will be at that show in Syracuse, fucking come hell or high water, especially if Matt is putting me on the list, man. They're going to take care of me. How can I fucking not go? I Hate God and Crowbar coming right into my fucking backyard, man. The Lost Horizon, man. You don't know what's fucking coming down the pipe, but that's going to be a fucking heavy night, and your boy plans on being in the building. So again, thank you so much. Again, make sure to like and follow Off the Couch Boxing /Pod Scum on Facebook, and make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell on this channel. And again, my biggest thanks to Matt Brunson. And remember, guys, heed my life advice. And it's very simple. Just remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy. Peace.